Join us at the Washington State Black Legacy Institute. Sign up for a workshop that will unlock the path to getting your dream home at the business festival during Kwanzaa. Join Pearl's workshop, the first-time home buyer. Benefit from local roots and specialized expertise. Passionate about making homeownership dreams a reality, Pearl provides valuable insights on down payment assistance for those first-time buyers. Come and join us at the Business Festival during Kwanzaa, running December 29th through the 31st. The address is 2656 42nd Avenue Southwest, Seattle, Washington, 98116. We'll see you there. At the Washington State Black Legacy Institute.
Mga kaibigan, ito po si Kuya Bert Kawili.
And this is Miles Salvador from Australia.
And I'm Norb Kawili, also known as Norbcam.
Kung gusto niyo po ang latest news and events from the Philippines at yung local Filipino community, Phil-Am Radio po.
We play Filipino music and interview guests from all around the world.
And I'll keep you updated on the latest Seahawks and sports news.
Kaya always tune in, Phil-Am Radio, every Tuesday, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time on Rainier Avenue Radio World.
And in YouTube and Facebook. Salamat po.
1, 2, get down. What's up, big and little homies? This is Masvita Maraire, host of Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio World, your one-stop shop for Seattle sports. We cover preps, we cover college, we cover pro, we cover it all. Huskies, Mariners, Seahawks, Garfield, South, Roosevelt, Metro, King County. This is where you want to listen to for all the sports that's happening in Seattle. Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio World.
We're breaking barriers in Washington. The Covenant Home Ownership Act tackles both past and present discriminatory practices in our housing industry by offering down payment assistance to affected families. A study is underway and your voice is needed to help document the extent of discrimination and determine who may be eligible. Complete our brief survey by January 7th at wshfc.org/covenant. Again, that's wshfc.org/covenant. Program funds will be available this summer, administered by the Washington State Housing Finance Commission.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenue.radio.world.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and wish everybody a happy, safe New Year. We are having a New Year's Eve special from 11 p.m. to 1 with a music mix by Grand Mixer GMS, which will have a countdown to midnight. So tune in for that if you are if you'll be driving or at home, and enjoy that with us and ring in the new year with us. We are today talking about a phenomenon. I would call it a movement. The Barbie movie. I was skeptical about this, and my wife and I on a date night went out to see it. And I learned some history about Barbie that I didn't know, even though I grew up, when Barbie was very popular. But it danced its way to the biggest global opening of the year, and it's in the top few of all time. The biggest opening also for a female director ever. Greta Gerwig is the director, and she, broke some glass ceilings there with this movie. And what's all the fuss about? Well, we're going to talk about it. I have a writer who has written a blog about the Barbie movie joining me to discuss this. Please welcome Maxwell Hayden.
Hey, Mac, it's great to be here.
Hey, Max, good to see you. So, as guys, a lot of people would say, why would guys talk about the Barbie movie? So, most people would think it's a female movie. It's a girls, night out, to hang out with their girlfriends. But I went with my wife. You saw the movie. So why did you see the movie?
My mother, of course, has got to be one of the biggest Barbie fans on the planet Earth.
Okay.
I kind of grew up in that same era of the Barbie boom. And I mean, with the phenomenon that it was, this movie was unprecedentedly big. Probably like the marketing movie of the year. Hard not to be swept up in that hype a little bit, Mac. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Did you go see it with your mom or did you go with friends or?
Oh yeah, I went with mom, and then I went again with friends because you do it once, you're not just stopping there. The Barbie movie, it's addicting like that.
A lot of people thought this would just be basically a commercial for toys, right? For Barbies, for people to go buy Barbies. But Greta Gerwig really took the opportunity to tackle some big issues in this movie, right? So, that was a little bit surprising. And I thought the opening scene was probably the most surprising scene to me. And for those of you that haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it, but the opening scene, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about it and then we'll discuss it, was like a few little girls, I think 3 or 4 little girls playing with their baby dolls. And before Barbie came around, there were only baby dolls, like in diapers that you had to feed bottles to, that kind of thing for little girls to play with. And so it was perpetuating the caretaker, that you need to have a baby to be, a valid whatever woman. It's kind of perpetuating all that. And then Barbie came, and this was the first doll that was a grown woman for girls to play with, and they could dress her up in different things. And that scene was it was a lot of fun. It made everybody laugh, but it also had a strong message. How did it hit you?
Definitely. As a film student myself, a wonderful homage to start things off. But really, it's a movie about transformation. And this is one of the most crucial transformations that happens before the story kind of even begins. It's, really, you said it best, funny, but striking metaphor at the same time. I think sets the movie off on a really strong note.
Yeah, so these little girls, they are with their baby dolls, playing with their baby dolls, and then they see Barbie, and they all just start crashing their baby dolls, breaking them apart and throwing them away, for a Barbie. It's quite the scene. They make this big, thing about it because they realize now, I don't have to just take care of a baby anymore. So women have put up with this. I know growing up, I was born in the 1960s, and so basically when women talked about the possibility of going to college, most people would say to them, why bother? You just need to get your MRS degree. So it was all about, you didn't have your own identity. It was about getting married and having children, and that became your identity. And that's what this is speaking to, right?
Definitely. Yeah. It's all of a sudden, everybody's got their own identity, and it couldn't be further from the MRS degree,
Right.
There's a niche for every woman in the Barbie world. That's what makes it so appealing.
Oh yeah, and they you bring that up, and then you go into Barbie's world here, and they have all the little Barbie houses, and Barbie has her Barbie car, and then there's the different types of Barbies in the movie that that do different things, and that really shows versatility and that women can do anything. That's part of the message, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you wrote a blog about this because it had an impact on you. And did you and your mom have some deep discussions about it afterwards?
Definitely. Yeah, I think there's a certain perspective that comes from having grown up with the dolls and as a woman that men just aren't going to get from the Barbie movie their first time around. I touch on this a little in the blog, that there's this role shift that exists between the doll, the real girl who Barbie interacts with throughout the movie, and Barbie herself. That as men, we can sit here and make observations about, oh, those characters are interesting. What qualities about these characters are striking it and could maybe teach us about women? Sure. But I think at a certain level, you know, how do the dolls and the ways that women played with these dolls for a long time and the ways that their lives were formed by the narratives that they told with those doll sessions with their friends, you know?
Right.
I'm sure we'll get into Ken and all that stuff later, but that's a big piece of the puzzle that maybe men might have missed out on completely.
Well, right. And, you know, when I was growing up, also, there were only certain jobs that women, you know, traditionally had, and that was like being a telephone operator, an elementary school teacher, right? That kind of a thing. A nurse, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about basically caretaking.
Yeah.
And there were stewardesses back then. But then, you know, wasn't that then Barbie started really branching out and putting women in other roles that you wouldn't have expected.
Yeah,
right?
It feels like
really
a far off world to me, Mac. The one where, you know, me 20-something.
Yeah,
you're telling me
totally.
this was within your lifetime that this was happened?
Totally. Yeah. Well, you know, I remember when they did the whole thing of I think there was an astronaut Barbie. I don't know what year that came out, but this was like I'm pretty sure that came out before there was the first female astronaut. That actually, you know, that we actually saw a real female astronaut, you know, and I grew up by Kennedy Space Center. So I very much remember when there was the first female astronaut and how big of a deal that was.
Definitely.
You know,
I think that's part of the movie's message too, you know, is that like, if the doll can do it first, now suddenly you can see yourself in those roles. I think
that's right. That's so true. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other, you know, huge message about this is it tackles the patriarchy, but it does it in a way with humor, where, you know, I think people can accept a bit more of the message because it's not like yelling in your face like this. You know? It's very clever in the way it tackles the patriarchy. So how did that land with you?
You know, Mac, it was the part of the movie that I was most conflicted about walking out of the theater for the first time.
Okay.
You know, you see all this great girl power messaging, all this wonderful, you know, women-centric focus. And, you know, I'm the one man in the theater watching for Ken and saying, well, this is a really shallow guy that we have representing all the men in this wonderful movie. Yeah. What's going on there? And the more that you sit with it and the themes that Barbie's bringing to the table, I really think it's just trying to emphasize how important it is to see each other in one another's shoes, that maybe gender roles aren't necessarily so set in stone when it comes to the roles that we play in one another's lives, and that maybe emphasizing the quirks of being feminine and being masculine that are more about the personality, the kinds of tact that we might bring to the table. Like that is where we should be considering gender more strongly in the future. I think that's a great theme. And I loved that aspect in retrospect.
Yeah. And to go back to the MRS degree, here's one of the funniest flips in the movie that they do. So, you know, when we talked about women's identity was about who they married, right? It was Mr. and Mrs. I mean, she loses her name. Basically she takes on the man's identity, right? and in the movie, Ken is nothing without Barbie. So it's not the girl being the arm candy of the guy. It's actually the opposite. And he just really doesn't have any, he's trying to figure out, do I have a reason to exist if I'm not with Barbie, right?
Yeah. Well, and it speaks to, you know, along those doll lines we were talking about earlier, so many young girls, they didn't know what to do with Ken when he came with Barbie, because they weren't thinking. I mean, it's a young girl playing with their dolls. The boyfriends are not a part of the story. Barbies are going to go out and do cool Barbie things. Okay, they're going to work their jobs. They're going to have girls sleepovers. Of course, Ken will be left on the sidelines. I thought that was a really great touch. I agree with you.
Yeah, but Ken really has this identity crisis within the movie, right? He goes through this basically, who am I if I'm not Barbie's boyfriend, right? Which is a real flip of the narrative that women have lived with for so long. And that's part of the fun of it, right? Is you watch how ridiculous that whole thing is, that whole idea of somebody losing their whole identity according to who they love or who they're in a relationship with, right? It pokes fun at it, but I think it also helps us see that everybody is their own person, right? It really points that out.
Definitely. I think, in an era right now in which you have movements like sort of the incel, the alpha male coming to the forefront of the discourse, I think it's commentary to those folks saying, listen, this is what happens when you define yourself so strongly by the one person who you can't even see on the level of a person, of being the same as you.
Right.
I think speaks very much to its time, but also has this universal truth you're speaking to of, maybe let's broaden our horizons a little bit. Maybe
that's right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And all the Kens. So for those of you that haven't seen the movie, it's a lot of fun. You should go see it. We highly recommend go see it. It's a fun thing to do as a date night. It's a fun thing to do with friends. And there's some great discussions that can come from this movie. That's why we're talking about it. I mean, this movie, like you said, it's one of the biggest openings ever, and it's broken a lot of records, and I think it'll continue to break records. And we're coming into award season, and it's supposed to sweep a lot of those. And you'd have never imagined a Barbie movie sweeping awards, taken seriously, right? But it's because it has such strong messaging, and it does it in such a clever way. Barbie actually meets her maker in this movie. Talk about that. How did that? What did you think of that?
Yeah, so you have this really interesting thread that kind of opens up in the middle and resolves itself at the end, right? Where Barbie meets the inspiration for her life, herself. That's a really strange, strong religious theme to just throw at this thing. But I think it speaks to a certain extent to the ways in which these generational traumas can pass themselves on. The ways in which being a human in and of itself means something so special that is worth thinking about a little bit more strongly, about ourselves beyond the gender roles, beyond what it means to be Barbie or Ken, and thinking about ourselves in a more holistic context. I think that was important, significant to tying it all up, despite only taking, 5-10 minutes of actual runtime in the movie.
Right. Yeah. It was very significant for sure. And then there were lots of different Kens. As there were many Barbies, there were different Ken, and the whole thing of Knuff, am I Knuff, has come out of this. Am I, there are t-shirts and there's a whole merchandise thing now. Am I Knuff? Is Ken enough on his own? Is the whole message just like that flip we were talking about that women have questioned for a long time because of the way the patriarchy has been in control. And so now Ken goes through this, am I enough? And that this whole thing, there's a whole movement to tell people you are enough just as you are, not about your accomplishments, not about, and that's the thing, not about who you're with, not about all these outer things, right? It's just you are enough. And this is the whole Knuff movement. What do you think of the Knuff movement?
Yeah. Listen, I think everybody has at least once in their life felt like maybe they were not living up to that standard, right? Yeah. Felt like I'm failing along some aspect, some axis of life that I'm just not going to be able to recover from right now. And if Ken can do it, I think we can do it, If there is something about Ken, this doll who does not have a personality really outside of Barbie, if there's something in him that is worth feeling like he is Knuff at the end of the day, I think there's something in all of us, you know? I think that soul that exists is something that we should all celebrate a little bit more strongly.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think one of the really strong points of the movie is also the fact that the women, there's a point in the movie where the Ken dolls take the leadership. Like they are now the dominant figure for a short period of time. they are running Barbieville or whatever you want to call it, Barbie Land. And they change over the decor and all this to this masculine stuff. And then all of a sudden, all the different Barbies pull together. The Barbies are following along with this and falling into the patriarchal stuff of being, seconding to the men for a short period of time, and then they wake up and they go, wait a minute. But I think one of the strong points is that they come together, as a united force. And that, there's a lot of talk in the world of business about there's so few women that have made it to the top of the corporate ladder and so forth, that a lot of women step on other women even to get there because there's only so many seats for women. So it's that dog eat dog capitalist mentality, and women are coming around, I think, in the world to this as well, as we've got to support one another and be there for one another. We can get there. More of us can get there if we do that. Right. So that is a strong message.
Yeah, big time. Misogyny is something that has been perpetuated by all of society. And as it would happen, women make up about half of that society.
Yeah, a little over half now. We're outnumbered.
Yeah, right? Uh-oh. Look out for the Supreme Court. I think to a certain extent, it can hurt hardest when it's coming from somebody who you think that you can relate to that way, who is going through a similar struggle, but might make some glancing comment about your weight, your qualifications, whatever it might be, that just digs that little extra deeper into the pain point.
Yeah.
And so I think you're absolutely correct. It's Greta Gerwig saying, hey, listen, ladies, if we're going to start trying to upturn this thing, we can start with the men if you want to, but probably we should all get ourselves organized first, get your ducks in a row, then turn and help the person closest to you with their preconceived biases.
Right. And I mean, that messaging has hurt all of us. It's hurt masculine people too. As you know, one of the things I talk about is this idea that we have to be in constant competition for our entire lives with all other guys. That's ridiculous. We can, accomplish so much more by collaborating and working together. But because that messaging has been in charge of most things, many women have taken that on, unfortunately, because that's the way they felt like they had to get anywhere in their careers.
Definitely.
Yeah. And this movie definitely tackles that. It's a fun, if you're still hanging out with your family for the holidays through New Year's and you all are looking for something to watch, turn on the Barbie movie and then have a family discussion. That'll be a lively discussion.
Yeah.
And
like Thanksgiving too.
I think more guys need to go see the movie. Yeah. And I think more guys need to go see the movie, for sure. And especially guys 40 and over, because we've been really steeped in that, in that messaging, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. So what was your mom's take on the movie?
Oh, I mean, she absolutely loved it.
How did your mom think about, what did she think about the movie?
Great. I mean, so one of the things that's so striking about the Barbie movie is how many hats each character wears at one time. Take Barbie, simultaneously a doll, right? Kind of a human as she operates through the real world through this whole thing and towards the end of the movie. a woman insofar as she presents as a woman, but masculine in the role in Barbie world, but feminine in the takedown that happens later with the Kens. You know, there's so many layers on layers of storytelling and pressures that are applied to each of these characters that, you know, I think it took both of us, my mom and I both. She loved it, me a little less so, but we worked through it. You talk through, okay, what's happening at this level here before we move on to the level above it, to the level above that one. And it really helps deepen your appreciation both for the storytelling and Greta Gerwig's direction, but, you know, for the plight of the thing too, for the people who you're talking with. So yeah, my mom and I eventually ended up loving it even more. I didn't think that was possible with her reaction throughout the movie, that she could love it more than that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And I love that it's caused this family discussion. I think that's awesome. It definitely did with my wife and I, and we've even discussed it with friends. And there's a point in the movie where Barbie takes on the corporate conglomeration that she takes on Mattel. Basically, she takes on Mattel. She goes into the boardroom and kind of takes them on. Like, what were your thoughts about that part?
You know, if I were to give one slight to the Barbie movie, if I'm one detraction I could take, is that they open this corporate theme. And with every other role in the movie, there's a lot of pros and cons, a lot of complexity. Not a whole lot of biting commentary about the world of business for Barbie. We get a little at the beginning there. Will Ferrell does a great job playing up the sort of dumb CEO role. But at the end of the day, you know, this is a movie that is being produced by Mattel, right? And therefore, well, you're not gonna slight Mattel too much. You want people to buy the Barbies at the end of the day.
Right.
But there certainly is something to be said there, I think. Yeah. Just about,
I think she could have been a little. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say just about the ways in which the business world can shape the way that people perceive themselves. Like, corporations have a massive impact on the story that gets told, the narrative that's pushed out to people. And I think they could have interacted with that a little bit more, but it was a good sort of first nudge, a little hint at it.
Yeah, I definitely think she could have taken them on a little stronger, and that would definitely be my one thing too. I thought they could have tackled a little more, but you know, there's talk that there's going to be a sequel, and as well as this movie did. Yeah, there's talk that they're already starting to work on it. So look out, world. I think with the response that they got with this, I think they won't shy away from taking on more issues.
It'll be really interesting to see, Mac. You know, there are two different takeaways people making movies could have from this in the future. They could focus on product placement and like, oh, Barbie's great, let's sell more merchandise. That's the wrong takeaway, right? Or maybe we'll get some more biting social commentary in places we weren't expecting to get. You know, it's kind of a toss-up. Hopefully it goes that way.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's such a great, like, I have 6 nieces and 2 granddaughters, and I think it's a great movie, you know, for young girls to be able to see, like, you know, it just is empowering, I think, to young girls. And I think that's awesome. Yeah.
Definitely.
So, yeah. Well, thanks, Maxwell, for the writing that you do, and for, you know, helping with this conversation. I think it's important. If you all are out there, take your daughters and granddaughters to see this movie, and your nieces, and take the boys too, because it's an important message for them as well. So, yeah. And I wish everybody a happy new year, and stay tuned for Seniors Matter. Thanks a lot, Max.
Thank you so much, Mac. Take care now.
You too.